Thought Bubble Audio.
Great Scott! I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Academy Geeks, where three geeks don't geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, are two hosts, because we have combined shows this evening. One of them is my friend and host of Academy Rewind, Palmer. How are you today?
Good. How you doing?
Excellent. I'm doing very well. And we also have my co-host from our other one of our other podcasts, Beer with Geeks, Frank. How are you today?
Hey, I am doing pretty great. It is great to be here with you guys today.
It is very nice for all of us to be here together. So this is the podcast where now three geeks take a look back at the Oscars from yesterday,
from year past.
We're going to be talking about the 2018 Academy Awards. This will be released simultaneously on the Academy Rewind feed, and then a little bit later on for the Beer with Geeks feed. And so, if you're a dual listener, I'm sorry, or you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're gonna get right into it. Unless anybody's drinking a beer, I'm not. Nope.
I've got one.
Frank. Yeah, Frank is. All right. What do you got?
All right. I have a Newburyport Brewing Company Greenhead IPA.
Ooh.
And it is a delicious beer. I opened one yesterday, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So, yeah, it's a local brewery from Newburyport, Massachusetts. Great little brewery with great beers. So Greenhead IPA, good stuff.
Cool. All right, great. All right. That's wonderful. I'm drinking tea because I have a cold.
I'm drinking water.
All right.
Because you're a human being. Good.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we're going to talk about the 2018 Best Picture nominations, and then all the other stuff, and then the other movies all the other categories that went along with with the Oscars. But to run down, the Best Picture noms were Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Phantom Thread, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Get Out, The Post, Call Me By Your Name, Lady Bird, and The Shape of Water, which of course won Best Picture.
You forgot Greatest Showman.
No, I didn't.
You know who did? The Academy.
Literally nobody forgot it. They did it on purpose because they hate you.
You're just kicking him while he's down now, Tim.
Because you're too critical of their past movies, and they heard it.
Well,
and they were like, nope, not happening.
Spoiler, there's one movie this year that I'm going to be very critical of.
It better not be Shape of Water, because you'll be along with what some people were saying about the Academy this year.
I saw that this morning, and I was like, really? I didn't realize Shape of Water was that divisive.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
I'm
I would think so. Yeah, when people asked me if I had seen it before it won, even I said yes, and I loved it, but it's not for everybody.
Right.
It's not a crowd pleasing movie. It's a very strange movie. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's actually fairly straightforward, but it's Beauty and the Beast without the Beast turning back into a man.
Right.
Yes.
Sort of. Yes.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I didn't realize it was that divisive. I mean, I also heard 3 Billboards is divisive.
I wouldn't call 3 Billboards divisive.
I don't think it was. It had the potential to be, but because I think just the subject of like police brutality is a divisive subject.
Sure,
but I think that Sleeping with the Fishes was a little more divisive, and people were like, what? Like, I think there came a point in Shape of Water for a lot of people, myself included to a certain degree, although I didn't hate it. But there was a point where people were sort of like, yeah, that might be a little bit too much for me. That's happening now. That's too much for me.
Okay, but you all got that she's a fish goddess, right?
Actually,
you all got that, right?
Wait.
Like, she's not a human.
Before we can discuss that in a minute. My question is...
Spoilers for all these movies.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
yeah. My question is, so we said, like, this is kind of Beauty and the Beast-esque.
Yeah.
So is the difference here, like, it's only implied she sleeps with the Beast and you actually see her sleep with the fish?
I don't think it's ever implied that she sleeps with the Beast.
Yeah, I don't think it's implied she sleeps with the Beast.
I think
it's
in the
a fairy
original...
tale.
Not the Disney version.
Oh, sure,
I'm just
sure,
talking about the regular.
Sure, but ultimately he's still just a human being that is transformed
Who
and
just
then
happens to have a lot of fur.
and then turns back. Right, he's a bison that turns back into
Buffalo man.
into a buffalo man that turns back into a human. But she has gills. That's the whole thing where like she needs to be in the water, and then like she seeks sexual pleasure in the water, and then that she has those marks on her head. So then when she goes in the water, she is like of his people. They're the same species.
Really? Does she have gills
that was
the
my
whole
reading
movie?
on it. The whole movie.
No,
I
she
don't
doesn't.
think
She has those marks on her. She has those marks on her
Right,
neck.
but
the
he
whole
turns
movie.
them into gills.
Yeah.
Just like he de-aged.
Yeah, I'm with
Then
Palmer
why
on
would
this.
she?
I'm
So
with
she
Palmer
just
on
happens to have 3 gill slit marks on her neck on each side of her neck.
It's called a fairy tale for a reason.
No, that's why she doesn't speak. You know, she can't because she. You know,
I very much disagree with you on this, Tim. I very strongly. I'm very, very much with Palmer, and I have to very strongly disagree with you. I don't think she had gills the whole time. I really don't.
No, I swear she did, because when I saw the film, I saw the marks on the side of her neck, and she was like, "Oh, she's a fish person." I get it.
I think maybe you were because you're good at sort of projecting what's going to happen. I think that you were like seeing where it was going, but I don't think it was there yet. I really
swear
don't.
to God it was there. Look, we know how I get. Look, we've been in this situation before, all 3 of us. When I don't think I'm right, I'll pretend that I'm right. But I also
Like you're doing now.
But when I'm also right, I'm right, and then you all have to concede that I'm right.
Well, I guess we all just have to agree to disagree, because I really don't. Unless like someone who worked on the film says that that's what it was, I'm not going to believe that.
I'm not saying that they opened and closed. They weren't like flaps that opened and closed like real gills.
Like they do at the end.
But they do at the end. But she's never been in that situation to have them open in the context of the film.
Yeah, but like at the end, he places his hand on her throat to make them
open.
Yeah, he like
them
heals
gills.
her. He like turns her into one of him. But I don't think she was to begin with. She was just a human who was mute. Was my read on it.
Who had predetermined gill marks on her neck?
I don't think
the
they were
entire
gill
film?
marks. They were scars from something else, from some kind of abuse that we don't know what it is.
Yeah, this movie kind of brushes over a couple things, like her past.
I don't think it's important.
Yeah,
to
I
the
don't think it's
film.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you the abuse thing, and I'll because they talk about that in the film. That's part of the story. But I still think that she's not just a regular human. That's my go-to.
Okay. But nobody really is in this movie. Like I was thinking about this when I was rewatching it last night, that everybody has a piece of them in this movie that doesn't make them ordinary.
For the 1950s.
Right.
Yeah.
But even then, like Octavia Spencer's character, I thought a little bit more like her thing is like her marriage isn't really great.
Sure. Yep.
And then you have Richard Jenkins' character who's in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
You have her who's a mute. You have Michael Shannon's wife who loves soap a lot.
I don't think that's not on the same level. But
it's a
I understand. I understand what you mean. But the point of the 3 of them, all 3 of them are like individual. They're individual characters that form one cohesive character
Right.
Yeah.
together. You know,
Yeah,
she's the mute, he's gay, she's black, and they all kind of form together this, you know, this mistreated group that takes care of another mistreated figure.
Yeah,
that's
in
right.
a different movie, like Michael Shannon's character is the hero of the story. He's the man that works for the government that comes in and saves everybody from the monster. Like, I'm talking like old school 50s, like
Right, and that's what Del Toro did, where he made the monster the hero.
right. Well, I wouldn't even necessarily call the Amphibian Man the hero necessarily. I think Sally Jenkins is the hero.
Well,
of
sure,
the story.
but I get what you're saying. Like he flipped the script where the traditionally, the all American guy, like who like served his country in the military and now is still serving his country in a new way, who should be in that 50s 60s sense would be the hero of a movie coming out back then in the time period it's covering. He's the bad guy, and this monster or whatever is maybe not the hero of the film, but a good guy, a protagonist.
Right, because the whole film is about like the 50s was like about pushing itself towards the future, right? Like where we have all this new technology and this new way of thinking, and we're post-war and we're good, we're in the good economy and we're doing all these great new things, and then you have this old world god show up and they don't know how to handle it. Right. Yeah. So which is why he's rebelling. It is the Fishman is everything that Michael Shannon fights against. But we as a progressive culture now look at it and say, oh no, the monster is the good thing, but I think in another time, in another decades ago, I would be curious what the read of this movie would be.
Yeah. One criticism I have of this movie, and I want to get both your takes on. It
wasn't long enough. I agree. I could have watched this movie forever.
No, I think it clocks in right where it should.
Yeah.
But the design of the creature.
Oh, interesting.
And I understand the design is very intentional, but doesn't it look a little too Abe Sapien?
I think so. I think it does look a little Abe Sapien from Hellboy, which is also a Del Toro film.
Is it Doug Jones?
Doug Jones, yeah. But having actually just rewatched the second Hellboy last week, there's, apart from them both being fishmen, there's not a terrible... You could say that Doug Jones also... Abe Sapien also looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Right, which is what he's going for.
Right,
like
it's all in the same...
Yeah.
It's all in the same vein. So, the difference... The detail in the makeup of the amphibian man in Shape of Water versus Hellboy is extraordinary. Like it's almost Abe Sapien and Hellboy almost looks like a costume that we put together by standards now. It's crazy how far it's come.
Well, I was going to say Hellboy 1 was what, 15 years ago?
2004, I think, something like that. Yeah.
I know he's been plugging it on his social media about the anniversary coming up.
Oh yeah. But the makeup itself is that in itself is extraordinary. Although it's interesting that it was considered a costume in by the Academy. Did you all notice that?
Was his outfit considered a costume?
His outfit is considered a costume and not makeup.
That's interesting. I guess that does make sense. It's like a full body prosthetic, right?
Yeah.
Right. But so was Churchill's stuff. It's still a big prosthetic.
I would say it's a little different though.
And a fat suit. Yeah. It's certainly different. I'd love to see Darkest Hour where he looks like a giant fish man. I just thought it was interesting. It took me by surprise when I was watching.
Yeah.
I was watching the clips of everything. It only took Doug Jones 2.5 hours to get into that suit, which is unheard of for much makeup.
See, that's why it's not actually considered makeup.
Because it didn't take...
Because it didn't take the entire day.
It didn't take 14 hours to put on. Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, did you like the movie?
Yeah. So, but that's Best Picture, and arguably he deserves Best Director for that picture. We can agree with that.
Those things usually go together.
Right. It also won music and set design. Do you agree with these decisions?
I like the music of it. When I was rewatching Dunkirk this week, there's a thing that kind of took me by surprise, and I didn't think of it the first time around. If you listen to the music of Dunkirk, it sounds like one piece of music.
Probably because it is one piece of music. It might be.
It could very well be, but I think I like Dunkirk a little bit more because it just feels like one entire piece and not several pieces that essentially are in this one album.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think Hans Zimmer is in his weird, like, I'm just going to create sounds instead of a melody place, and that to me just doesn't add to the film. And like, music should bring a scene to a place that you wouldn't expect it to go to.
I think it depends on the film, because I'll agree with you. Like, his stuff in Dark Knight at times felt like just a cacophony of sound. But I feel it really works in Dunkirk, even at the very beginning when he's running and the music is mimicking the footsteps running.
Sure. Frank, that's known as
Mickey Mousing.
Yay! Frank took a film class.
I did. I took a film music class specifically, actually. But you know, I think Shape of Water deserved to win for best original score. Of the films in that category that I did see, unfortunately, I didn't get to see all of them, but of the ones that I did see, I very much felt that it did the most to elevate the story and elevate the film. So for me, that it was deserving. You know, Alexandre Desplat was deserving of winning for that.
Yeah, I agree. And then it won set design as well.
Which,
nothing in a Del Toro film is accidental. No. Like the wallpaper on Sally Hawkins' wall look like fish scales. There's the Japanese Great Wave on the other side, but it's all covered up by like decaying paint and everything like that. You know, you almost have like the two different sides of the apartment conjoined by one window, right? You have all of the stuff that everything is exactly laid out the way that everything is always tied together no matter what. That's Del Toro at his best. He did it with Crimson Peak and I don't think he got the credit that he deserved.
No, because it was more of a genre film.
Yeah, didn't get the credit that he deserved. So I'm glad that they're recognizing that here.
This movie looks gorgeous. This, especially for the time period that it takes place in, it feels like it. It looks like it. And if you pause almost any part of this film, there's so many things that you can draw your eye to. But when you're just watching it at full speed, it looks like a mix between real life and a fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah, this is good. It's perfect. All right, let's move out of Shape of Water. Let's talk about Lady Bird. Didn't win anything. How do we feel about that?
It's a bummer. It's a real bummer. I think especially this year with so the tone of conversation and everything. It is kind of a bummer that this was like kind of, if you wanted a sort of underdog story or sort of the come from behind story of a director like Greta Gerwig, being the only female nominee in that category and everything, would be for best director and so forth, would be really cool. But I think it was like in another year, I think it really should have won, but this was a pretty good year. I think we can all agree there were a lot of really great films. So it was tough because as much as I would like to see her win, sort of on principle, I think that some of the other films probably deserved it more.
I agree with that. As nice as it would be I wouldn't want anybody handing her the award and then people going, oh well, it only won because this is what they were talking about at the Oscars this year. Yeah.
Right. You don't want to feed that fire and like let somebody, because then it like
diminishes.
She'll have won the award, but it'll be sort of sullied by the skeptics and the haters, saying that she didn't really deserve it.
The funny thing was, as I was reading Twitter last night, I noticed, although I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to know the answer. It sounds like some of the people that we follow that listen to the show felt Del Toro got the award as sort of past achievement.
I mean, you could say that about a lot of directors.
The Oscars
that
does
get their
have
awards.
I was going to say the Oscars have a track record with doing that. I really championed Lady Bird to get nominated. I championed it to get nominated.
And they listened because it was nominated.
Right. I championed for her to get in a nominee for Best Director. Best Picture for me was a little bit of a stretch, although I did enjoy the movie a lot more the second time around. And writing, obviously. But I don't think it's good enough to win in anything, except Best Actress, because I feel this movie hinges on Academy Rewind favorite Saoirse Ronan.
You did it.
Yeah,
You did it.
Hey! Tim, tell him what he's won.
You've won a jet ski.
A jet ski!
Did you steal it off of the guy from?
I stole
it off of the Phantom Thread guy?
I stole it off of the costume designer from Phantom Thread. 36 seconds. Very impressive.
Yep.
Very impressive.
I feel the movie really hinges on her performance more so than almost anybody else in this category.
In the Best Actress
in the
category.
Best Actress category.
That's interesting.
And I really wish she would have won it.
I mean, I think she's very good in the film, but I don't think it's not best actress. Like,
yeah, see, I think it is.
I don't think I don't think it's her. It's the range that the character has to go through, the arc the character brings for it starts with and then ends with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that not that she's not given enough to do, but that she's not allowed to stretch the way that Saoirse Ronan could stretch. And that who won Best Actress? I can't.
Frances McDormand.
Frances McDormand.
Yeah, she was so good, and I can't help but have given it to Frances McDormand. Like there was no other contender for me.
I feel the same way. As soon as I saw Three Billboards and saw her performance, I just it seemed obvious that she was the winner. I loved Meryl Streep in The Post as well. I'm always sort of
she was very
in Meryl's
good.
corner, but this wasn't really her breakout performance, and she's won 25 other Oscars or whatever.
Right.
She's fine. I thought Frances McDormand really she was captivating, and when I saw that performance, I knew that was going to be the winner.
So I don't have a huge problem with giving it to Frances McDormand. I feel the acting in that movie is stellar. I thought Woody Harrelson was really good. I thought Sam Rockwell was great.
I think he deserved
when we walked
his win.
out, I even said Sam Rockwell should get it.
And he was so good too.
And while I really like Frances McDormand, I think the biggest problem is I feel like Sam Rockwell just steals the movie.
Oh, I don't think so.
I think he does, and because of that, I think she kind of gets kicked to the back burner, and that's where I think Saoirse Ronan kind of stands out. Her and Laurie Metcalf kind of really pull that movie through. That, and otherwise could be a much drier movie than it turns out to be.
That's it. I mean, actually, I wanted Laurie Metcalf to win. She was for Best Supporting. She was she is who I wanted.
Yeah. So I mean, who
Allison Janney won. Who was always good.
She's always good, but Tanya, she was fine.
I don't think she was fine. I think she was her consistent Allison Janney self. I don't think Tanya let her be as good as she could be.
That's interesting. I don't agree with that.
I think it starts with her being really good. But I think, but Palmer and I talked about this off air, that the tone of the tone of that film shifts from kind of this absurdist dark comedy into basically a regular movie.
It muddles itself,
and so I think it loses part of its charm by doing that, and then so Allison Janney then isn't given the birth that she deserves to have made the mother really shine. So, but that's me, and I'm happy that Allison Janney won something because she's great in everything.
Yeah.
But sometimes people win for roles that are not their best, or the movie's not the best, but you're glad that they have something. Actually, Leonardo DiCaprio is a great example of that from The Revenant. That's not his best role. It's not his best character. It's not his best movie.
It was
it's
just
a
the one
good
they
movie,
finally
and he's
decided
good.
to give it to him.
It's the one where they decided to give it to him. Right.
And I'll be honest, I kind of feel like I know you guys both loved Sam Rockwell's performance here, and I am Sam Rockwell fan number one, but I don't think this was his greatest performance. I think this is just the one where they gave it to him. But I think that it was not his. I don't think it was good. It was a very good performance, a very strong performance. But compared to his body of work, I think something like Moon deserved it, more.
Sure, but
and
Moon not being nominated at all, like you. Yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like because this was his year, like to get a nomination. I don't know if this was the Academy's thinking or not, but it feels to me like he was given this because you know what, he's overdue anyway. This is his shot. Let's give him this one, especially because compared to the other actors in the pool, he seemed to be the most deserving out of this bunch.
I see your argument. For me, Sam Rockwell in this movie plays such a detestable guy to me that while I didn't care about his overall like kind of redeeming story arc that they kind of went for at the end, I just felt for me to walk out of that theater hating that character the way I did. Sam Rockwell did a really good job at pulling off how bad he was. Maybe he doesn't pull off the redeeming aspect, but I think that's more of a fault on the screenwriting
and not
than
Sam
the actor.
Rockwell. And I don't think he's supposed to be completely redeemed at the end of the film either. He even said, like, if this was the real world, they'd probably both be in jail. Like, that's just, that's the reality of it. But I think, the movie itself the story doesn't really end. The film ends, but the story doesn't. So we don't really see, in some ways, the real completion of his redemption. You see the middle of, like, he's getting there. He's close, but he still has some places to go. Same with her, in her own story. Let's move on. Call Me by Your Name won Best Adapted Screenplay. I didn't read the book, so I can't comment on how well it was adapted. I think the movie is not for me. I didn't connect with it. It wasn't. I think it was well acted. I thought they were both Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer were extremely naturalistic. They felt like very genuine, real people to me. It's just not there. But his story is not one that I connect with. So I finished the film going, okay, that was fine. That was good. Like, I get why people like it, but it's not for me.
So, do you remember what you told me after you watched this?
That you would hate it.
Right. So I watched it, and I watched it first to get it out of the way.
Yep.
I don't hate this movie. I don't understand why everybody loves it. Because to me, the biggest issue with this movie is, like, there's no tension for me. There's no problem. Like, everyone's in favor of them being together.
I would say there's tension with his kind of girlfriend, what does he do with that, blah, blah, blah. So there is some tension, but I know what you're talking about. There's no MacGuffin.
Yeah.
It's not really tension. There's no MacGuffin. But I think that it's beautifully shot, but I think it's hard to screw up Italy in some ways.
Which for some reason, I had in my mind that this movie was supposed to take place in Florida. So
that's the Florida project.
I realized that afterward. But, like, when they started talking Italian, I'm like, why are they talking Italian in Florida? What is this movie that I'm watching?
Interesting.
Frank, what did you think about Call Me by Your Name?
Yeah, I think my perspective is that look, I'm a straight white dude, right? It wasn't for me, but I still appreciate what it represents to people for whom it was for.
Exactly.
So I wish we had like a third perspective here. I'm not going to elaborate on it too much. I think you guys kind of captured it. It wasn't for us, but I can still appreciate and see why it means so much to so many people for whom it is for, who feel represented by it. I think representation really matters, and I think it's important that we remember, like, okay, you know what, this wasn't for me. That's fine. It was still a good movie. I see how good it was. I see what was. I see why it won Best Adapted Screenplay and all that. But it wasn't for me, and that's all I have to say about it. Really,
I have a friend that saw it 4 times in theaters, loved it, and it was meant for him,
right?
And that's great. And so I'm glad that it's there.
Yeah,
and you can't connect with everything.
No.
Speaking about a film that the Academy didn't connect with, The Post also didn't win anything.
Yeah.
It was just It was a movie that was there.
I mean, it was only nominated twice.
Best Picture and Meryl Streep.
Right.
Meryl Streep.
Which I believe is just a thing that happens when Spielberg or Meryl Streep are in a movie. They automatically, they pencil it in.
I mean, my thing, though, I thought The Post was very good. And I thought in another year, I think I said this about Lady Bird, too, another year, this would have won pretty easily, probably. But I thought it was very good. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the story of the Meryl Streep character, whose name I'm blanking on right now, but I thought that the story was pretty resonant in the current Katharine Graham, the Katharine Graham story of this woman who, and especially if you look into her, read up on her actual story. It was absolutely true that she didn't really, in fact, they didn't really put this across completely in the film, but she didn't know what she was doing. I mean, she inherited this. She came from a time when, women were seen and not heard and that kind of thing. And they didn't have opinions, and they certainly didn't run major companies that went public or anything like that. Women weren't generally, business people. So Katharine Graham in The Post was a feminist icon and a pioneer. And so I think that's very important. And another year, this film would have been sort of this triumph of the human spirit type of thing. But again, the field, the crop of films that it was up against, Spielberg and Streep and Hanks, notwithstanding, there were better films than this. Even though I very much enjoyed it, there were better films.
Totally agree, and I think this is one of Spielberg's better films in a number of years.
In recent years, yeah, for sure, better than Lincoln.
Better, yeah, because they're all his films are fine, but we've talked about this on the show before. Like I think on both shows, like he's been coasting since Minority Report.
He has,
maybe, and so this one felt almost Spielberg fresh to me.
See, I
agree with that. I agree with that. Yes.
And I know some people didn't agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I still feel he's coasting on this movie. Like it's okay. Like I came out very underwhelmed, and I was kind of looking forward to it. I've seen a better movie that takes place at a newspaper. It's called The Paper. And I've seen better Meryl Streep movies. So, like, everything that wants me to like this movie...
But not a better Tom Hanks movie?
Big was pretty good. Okay. Like, everything that's drawn to make me like this movie, I've seen better parts of it somewhere else.
Okay. I understand that. Even Spotlight is a better newspaper movie than this one is.
I agree with that, too, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still a good movie. But I guess everybody in the Academy also recognized the same thing that we're talking about right now. Like, it was great. It was really good. But it's just it felt like one of the it was nominated because we have to do 9 now because people flipped out that we didn't nominate The Dark Knight. So here we are with your 9 films. Okay, not everyone's going to win.
They can go up to 10.
But we can go up to 10.
They can go up to 10 nominees.
Yeah. So
right.
And so here we are. Okay, so let's go into Get Out. Won Best Original Screenplay, first Black screenwriter to win an Academy Award.
Yep. And
for an original screenplay.
And much well deserved.
I think so.
I agree. I agree.
Now, controversial opinion. Here we go. I'm going to say it.
Do not make me beat you with this mic.
I'm going to say it. I didn't see Get Out in theaters.
Oh.
I saw it at home on my own a year after it had come out. But in preparing, I just had missed it. Like, we didn't see it. None of us. I didn't see it in the theater with you. And then that was it. I got busy, and then I never got around to seeing it. So I heard for a year how it was the greatest thing in the world.
And it was.
And so by the time I saw it, it had that lingering, this is the greatest thing in the world over it. And so it wasn't the greatest thing in the world to me. And it was really well made. And it had some, for a first-time director, it had some it had some surprisingly...
There you go.
Original image. It has some surprisingly original imagery. Stuff with the teacup and then the floating space, and it was really well thought out, and I liked it. It was really well acted. I just don't think it was the greatest thing in the entire world. I still think out of this lineup, or out of the lineup of original screenplays, I think it deserved it.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree. I don't disagree with the outcome. I am just stating for those who maybe also feel the same way that it wasn't. If you didn't see it at the zeitgeisty moment, it's kind of almost like Game of Thrones or whatever that, or like Harry Potter, whatever. If you're not with it in that moment, with the surge, then it's not everything that it is.
I think this movie really begs you to watch it with an audience. I saw it in the theaters opening weekend, and I loved it, and even rewatching it, I still really liked it. But there's watching the movie for the first time with an audience that doesn't know what's happening and knows all the tropes of a typical horror movie, and hearing just like the gasps and audience reaction that you don't typically get in a theater really pushes this movie over the finish line for me. So the fact that you were robbed of that experience,
and I mean,
makes
that's
your life incomplete.
Movies. Go ahead, Frank.
I agree with Palmer. I think there's a couple of things here. I think that it is very important to see it with an audience, actually. I think that was a big part of what made it so enjoyable. For me, I also saw it, I think it was opening weekend, very early on in its run anyway. And I thought that, so my point is there were big crowds still at the point. It was still full theaters. And that did bring a lot to the experience. But I think that there's a lot, for me, again, straight white guy here, it made me think about my, for lack of a better term, privilege, and the way that I look at the world, and how that's not how everybody looks at the world, and how important it is for me to remember that in my daily relationships with everyone, with people of all colors and creeds and everything else. Because the way that it paints, the family, even when they're acting quote unquote normal, and he's all like, oh, I would have voted Obama for a third time if I could have. Like, why is that the first thing you say when you meet a black person? Like, that you would have voted for the black president,
Right.
that belies a kind of subtle racism. Even if it's like well-meaning racism, it's still kind of racist that your first thought is, oh, hey, you're black. Let me tell you, I have a black friend, or I voted for the black president. Like, there's something there. And it made me think about, oh, shoot, what are things that I do that are like that? I bet there are unconscious things that I do well-meaning without realizing it. And it really made me think, and then it put me in the place of, and I think it very much is trying to do this. Imagine put yourself in someone else's shoes where that is your entire world, and people are always sort of patronizing to you and talking down to you and condescending to you in that way, thinking that they're being your buddy and your ally, but they're really being condescending. It made me look at myself in that way. It made me think about the world in a completely different way. Even things like where they're at the party, and the guy who actually yells "Get out!" who's wearing like the straw hat and everything. He's like this hyper sexualized Adonis figure for this older white woman. Even that sort of way that sort of stereotype being brought to the fore was very interesting to me. I thought there were a lot of moments like that I think are easily missed, and that I think are very important. And again, it just made me think of the world in a different lens.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because one, you said it very well. It was very articulated. Good for you. But also, I think a film that wins best writing, best screen, best original, best adapted, best film, it should challenge you to rethink the way. That's what good art does.
Yeah.
It challenges you to rethink the way that you think about the world. And hopefully it challenges you to think about it in a better way. So I think on that basis alone, Get Out deserves to win, because say something like Three Billboards, which I thought was an excellent screenplay, doesn't necessarily challenge you the way that Get Out did.
Yeah.
In a subtler way, the way you described, like, oh, I would have voted for Obama a third time, I think that is what propels the film. But you're right, I don't think the reaction that I had watching it alone was the same that people would have in an audience. But I can say that almost about any movie.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to horror and comedy. those genres, just you need to watch them with groups.
I think that's valid.
I was telling Tim the other day when I was rewatching it for the podcast that in my head, the only person that I find in Get Out who's very like outwardly racist is the brother.
Right.
And my reasoning for this is like his whole thing about jiu-jitsu being the best fighting style because it's in the mind, meaning even if I get my mind put into a black body because they believe the African American person is structurally and physically superior, he's like, I'm still going to have my white mind, and that's what makes me better.
See, that's a really good insight. And if I had thought about that more, maybe I would arrive there. But I hadn't processed that the same way. That's a really interesting insight too. I like
and I agree with you. Like a lot of Bradley Whitford's dialogue is very like, I can see through the lens of how he is in the movie. Like, yeah, that kind of does sound racist. Or why would you say that? When you first meet him, like my man, and I'm like, and I'm
the
like,
thing is, we all know guys like that.
Oh, definitely.
Or
we all know people like that,
or you've accidentally done it,
or that, right?
And you're not thinking, but like it's one of those things. Like you don't mean it to be racist, but how does it come across?
Exactly. That's what made me, to Tim's point, made me like challenge my own perception and my own thoughts about myself.
Yeah.
Now, after I gave that big defense of Get Out, I kind of am sad The Big Sick didn't win in this category.
I thought that you would be, because you like that film quite a bit.
I love that film. I love Kumail Nanjiani I have for many years, and I love that it's the true story that he and Emily went through. And this movie has so much heart and so much. Like they poured years of their life into it, and I'm such a big fan of Emily's and of Kumail's that I know like everything about the movie at this point, and I know that like how much of it is true and how much of it is exaggerated and so forth. So, I feel very emotionally invested in it more than I do with Get Out. So maybe that's coloring it a little bit as well.
I think that's a good point. I don't think that The Big Sick is a challenging film. Like, it doesn't challenge you the way that Get Out does.
Ooh. See, I disagree a little. Maybe not to the same extent. I'll grant you not to the same extent. But I do think
certainly not to the same extent.
Not to the same extent. No, I agree with you there. But I do think it's a challenging film because I think that it shows this, this culture of arranged marriages, for instance, and it shows like these are real people who laugh and eat dinner together, and they're just like your family. They may not be just like your family in every way, but you can see, at least for me, right? My parents are immigrants. Going back to my grandparents, all immigrants, and so we didn't come from Pakistan, but they came from Italy. But I saw my family in Kumail's family and some of their traditions that are old-fashioned and that I don't agree with and that I don't upkeep, but have some respect for and that kind of thing. Not to the same extent, but I saw a familiarity in Kumail's family there, and it did challenge my perceptions a bit. Not the same way Get Out did, not the same way where it made me look inward and see like my own faults and things, but it did make me think differently about a culture that I'm less familiar with and say like, oh, that's more like we're more alike than I realized.
Sure. But I guess there are a lot of films that are, say, like The Big Sick that could also do that, in a lot of ways. So as much as I did like that film, it doesn't sit in the same plane of existence. And I think that a film like you're very connected to Kumail and his wife and to that story and all, but a film has to stand on its own.
Agreed.
Without all of those things.
Get Out was far more unique in that regard. The story that it tells and the way it tells it and the devices it uses are way more unique than The Big Sick, which is, if you boil it down, is a rom-com, which we've all seen plenty of rom-coms, and we've seen other stories about immigrants and things like that. So I on its own merits, it's less unique, less original than Get Out. So Get Out does deserve it. I'm just saying that I was a little sad as a fan of Kumail and Emily. I was a little sad to see them lose, in the category that they had the best shot at winning in.
Sure.
But Jordan Peele 100% deserved this.
I believe it was also the only thing it was nominated for.
Well, was it? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
So I'm not going to belabor this, but I did not like Big Sick. There was a few misfires for me, and then what made me really dislike it was he seemed to have thrown temper tantrum is not the right word, but when he didn't get nominated for the Golden Globe, he kind of went on like a day-long thing about, how this movie got overlooked. And that really kind of turned it off for me.
Frank, you want to speak to that since you know about the behind the scenes?
I'll be honest, I don't remember those tweets. I think it was I don't remember the details of that tweet storm or whatever. So I can't speak to it.
Okay, well, we're just going to move on because we still have some films to go through. Phantom Thread. I actually really liked it. I'm not a huge Paul Thomas Anderson guy, but I was really captivated by Phantom Thread quite a bit. I think as much as I think, say, Beauty and the Beast even also deserved, say, a costume win or Shape of Water for the amphibian man suit and all that. The clothes in that film were unbelievable, and I really enjoyed it. Paul Thomas Anderson's films recently, particularly this one, they're a lot of build up to almost nothing, and then it kind of takes a little bit of a veer off road. Mm-hmm. And going in and kind of expecting that to happen, you could really enjoy that experience. I don't think that. Oh my goodness, what's his name? The greatest actor of all time,
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. I don't think he deserved to win. He was very good in this film, but I don't think he deserved. But I don't think this was his. I don't think this was his greatest. And so I'm glad it wasn't. The film wasn't tipped in his favor. The awards weren't tipped to his favor. Yeah. Just because this is supposedly his last film.
Well, I mean, he's won before, so that helped. I actually really, 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 really despise this movie. And I'm not typically a Paul Thomas Anderson fan. I think Daniel Day-Lewis just playing Ray Fiennes wasn't enough for me, and it's lacking. Like, as much as I've disliked some Paul Thomas Anderson films before, it's lacking.
You've also liked some
scene.
Paul Thomas Anderson films.
I have. Because we were looking at his filmography, and like Boogie Nights, I like. The Master, I like. There Will Be Blood. I like Daniel Day-Lewis's acting in that. I don't like him in this, and I really dislike.
Well, he's not really a likable person.
No, but I mean, like, even the characters he plays, like, you're not supposed to like him in There Will Be Blood.
That's true.
I like his acting.
He's very charismatic in that film.
Was I supposed to like him in Lincoln because I didn't?
Yes.
Oh!
You are not
Shade
welcome
thrown
back.
at the president. Wow, you didn't like him in Lincoln?
No, I mean, not that I didn't like the character. I didn't like his acting in Lincoln.
Oh, so interesting.
I didn't buy that president would do those things.
That's it. That's it. I didn't buy it.
So let me get this. So, Frank, did you see this film?
I didn't. This one and Darkest Hour, I did not see.
You didn't see Darkest Hour?
I know. I'm really bummed. I'm really bummed that I didn't see it.
All right. Well,
spoiler: they win the war.
They win.
Was the hour dark?
It was. It was actually during the power outage.
Oh, the Dunkirk power outage. Got it.
Okay, so we can move on from Phantom Thread since Frank hasn't seen it, and then let's actually move to Dunkirk. I was going to do Dunkirk then Darkest Hour, but since Frank didn't see Darkest Hour, let's do Darkest Hour first, and then we can I'll talk about Dunkirk. Darkest Hour was great. It was one of the best films of the year. I'm really glad that Gary Oldman won. Yeah. I do think there is, despite what people say, a little bit of Gary Oldman in that performance. People are like, he's unrecognizable. And I'm like, no, I can see him. I can see his eyes haven't changed.
I can hear him.
I can hear him a little bit, though, but it's kind of like his, we've talked about Frost Nixon on this podcast before, and we've talked about Frank Langella's Nixon, where he's Nixon, but he's not, quote unquote, being Nixon. He's not doing an impersonation of Nixon. He's just embodying the character. And I think that's what Gary Oldman does. He embodies the character. And he does sound like Churchill. If you listen to what Churchill really sounded like, it's not the, like, Brian Cox really gruff.
Although I like the Brian Cox version.
I like that the Bulldog Churchill. It's kind of like the deep voiced Abraham Lincoln. Also not true. And so he had a high, reedy voice. So I like that Oldman presented in some ways, a historical Churchill as opposed to the caricature of Churchill. And that's where I think his performance really shines through, as does the makeup, which it completely deserved, because apparently the Amphibian Man was a costume. But even then, I would still give it to his transformation, because Oldman is a tiny, reedy little thing, and he plays Churchill. Go ahead.
On the note of the costume versus makeup thing, it just occurred to me. Do you think that maybe the decision was made? I mean, because I think a lot of the way this happens is it's the filmmakers nominate, put forth the nomination, right? So like maybe they put forth
I know where you're going with
Shape
this,
of Water as a costume because they thought they had a better shot of winning there than as makeup. It could be debatable, that kind of thing. Or
it's very possible.
The Academy was like, well, we're going to give this one the makeup and this one the costume because they both deserve to win. So, something like that. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah,
sort of
makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I think everybody who saw Darkest Hour went best makeup.
Right.
Before nominations even went out, everyone went, "Yep, that's it, right there."
I mean, there was buzz about it before the movie came out.
Right.
From the trailers.
I didn't think that. I mean, I'm
but
fine
you
with
never
it winning
think what everybody thinks. So
no. What I'm saying
me.
is, I'm fine with it winning best makeup. But I didn't think. I walked out of that movie, and I even tweeted on the Academy Rewind Twitter, like, that is the best actor. Like, I as soon as I walked out of the movie, I
remember that. Yeah,
I was like, I'm positive I just saw the best actor performance of this year, and I was right. He's really good in this movie, and I went into this movie with trepidation. I like Gary Oldman, but I was worried because during the trailers I heard Gary Oldman. Watching this movie in real time, he kind of dissolves away.
Definitely. You get more used to Churchill as the film goes on.
Right.
And then so by the end of the film, he's just Churchill. He's not Gary Oldman. Because I'm not like watching for Gary Oldman being Churchill anymore. I'm just absorbed in the movie.
Exactly. And then the only thing that really misfired for me on this movie was, if you don't know a lot of the English politics that this story is going over, there's some stuff that you're going to miss, and there's stuff that went over my head.
This is always your problem. Anytime there's a historical film, that your number one go-to is, if you don't know the history, you don't always get it.
It's not always that. It's when they don't to me, they don't kind of fill in why they're like...
Why there's opposition on this side or this side, or who's this person supposed to be. And,
right.
Yeah. I don't... Actually, so I watched The Crown, and I found watching The Crown was very helpful for some things, because some of those same people are just, a bit old, like a decade older,
right,
in that show. And so watching that and going, oh, you're going to be prime minister one day, and oh, this person over here is this person, and blah blah blah.
Yeah. In this instance, it was a small thing. Like, I didn't dislike the movie because of it. I really liked this movie. But I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. And it did make me want to go back and find out a little bit more about the history of this time. But Joe Wright, who did Atonement, correct?
Yep.
This movie looks good. He's a really good visual director. His movies tend to look the correct period for the time frame. And he usually gets really good performances out of his actors. Even Lily James, who's in this movie, who I have a blood feud with, is pretty good in this.
For no reason. He has a blood feud with her for no reason. Zero reason he has this.
It goes back to Downton Abbey.
It literally is no reason. He just thought Rose was an annoying character on Downton Abbey, and that was it.
She tried to overshadow Mary.
No, nobody's favorite character is, of course, Palmer's favorite.
She's mine.
Yep. Okay, so
naturally.
anyway,
Can I say one thing before we move on from this
you
movie?
can say a few things if you want.
I didn't see the film, so I can't really comment on the performance. I was a little bit disappointed that given Gary Oldman's personal history of domestic abuse, that this year
what?
of all years,
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about?
his previous wife
Yep.
had accused him of having beaten her pretty badly.
I had no idea. Wow, that
in
is
front of their
upsetting.
children. In front of
Ooh.
their children.
That is upsetting.
Very upsetting. So I was a little upset that, again, I didn't see the film, so I can't comment on his performance. Maybe it was the most deserving performance. I'm sure it was. Everyone seems to think it was. I'm sure it was. I do not take away his acting talent. But I was disappointed that we're sort of still rewarding bad behavior when we're talking about Harvey Weinstein on the one hand and how horrible, and how glad we are that he got kicked out of the Academy. And at the same time, Kobe Bryant and Gary Oldman won Oscars at the same Oscars where we're talking about Harvey Weinstein and how great it is that we're having this moment. It was a little disappointing to me. Not to say that their work wasn't award deserving work, but it still seems like, would you give an Oscar to Harvey Weinstein at this point? No, I don't think we would, or Kevin Spacey for that matter.
Right.
So I was disappointed on that note.
Now, here's an issue. So why was that not in the conversation at all?
It has been. You've missed it.
I've
it has
completely missed
been.
it.
Because
It has
it
been.
cropped up right after the Golden Globes. This is also a story that's
Years old.
quite a few years old.
Yeah.
So there's the whole time is
this a case?
passing.
Is this a case of Hollywood forgiving Gary
Yes.
Oldman?
Well,
and
I mean,
I don't think
Yes
it's like a
and
Mel
no.
Gibson thing where like he was ostracized and then allowed back in. I
Yeah,
think
he
it's
was
more of a
never
thing
really-
of no, he wasn't really ever ostracized. I think it's kind of a thing of like we didn't have these issues on our radar at the time, so it was sort of like,
Sure.
huh, that's weird.
but,
Anyway,
like,
moving on.
It came out and it was a thing. So, like,
Yeah.
while I agree, I wouldn't give an Academy Award to Harvey Weinstein at this point. I think I really hate saying this. The biggest reasoning for me is this was never kept a secret, like everything else was. Like, if he did those things, something should have happened to him. But it was out there, like it was a known story. It wasn't like a hushed secret.
I don't know.
But I agree. I understand your
It
point,
feels
and
icky.
I agree with you.
Can we at the very I wouldn't have voted for him were I in the Academy, and at the very least I think we can all agree it feels icky that at this
Yes.
time, at this moment, we're still giving
really-
these awards
It
to
really
people
does.
who've done horrible things.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It is the best performance. Maybe not the most deserving
I'm
person.
not going to argue with. Again, I didn't see it, and even if I had seen it, I'm sure I would agree with you if
Right.
I'd seen it.
I think this is a whole
But
different
he's not-
conversation.
right,
It is.
he's
It
not
is.
the
It
most
is. I just thought that was
deserving
worth
person.
mentioning. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
We don't. have to
I'm
talk
glad
about
you
the-
mentioned it because I had no idea. So I'm glad.
I'm sure other
let's-
people didn't either.
So wrapping up the top pictures, the best pictures. Let's talk about Dunkirk. Christopher Nolan. I don't think it's his best, and I'm glad that it didn't win.
Well,
Because it won, it won best editing, sound mixing, and sound editing. Also, I don't think it deserved those either. I think
not
the movie
even sound mixing and sound editing.
No, I think they were good. I think the film was really good.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's his. I don't think it's his best or his team's best work.
So let me ask you this then, because I find that interesting. So what of the sound mixing, editing? They basically, I think the same films were edited, or were nominated for both of those categories. You had Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
I have it last.
yeah.
I have it here.
Tim
I know.
picked Last Jedi for one of them,
Okay.
and then the other one he actually picked Dunkirk.
I think sometimes I picked ones that I thought deserved it, and other times I thought what the Academy would vote for. I
I
wasn't
see.
consistent
Yeah.
in my choices. I picked editing for Star Wars because generally I'll always give a movie that well, how do I say, like, creates new sounds
Oh,
that
yes.
to me deserves a bigger editing award than this is a cannon blast. This is a
Yeah,
ship
yeah,
going
yeah.
across the water. Like we know what those sounds are, but a science fiction movie, a fantasy movie, even to some extent, like you're creating something new, something that's never been heard by human ears before. And that I think is more of a challenge. And so I'll tend to give editing that way. Now, sound mixing, putting all those things together, I think that Dunkirk did it. I guess maybe Dunkirk did do it really well. I think I chose Baby Driver for one of them, didn't I?
No,
I chose Baby Driver for editing.
which I did as well.
Oh,
which
okay.
if you're gonna give Baby Driver an award, it's definitely editing.
It's that one.
No,
Yeah. Dunkirk for me, the sound categories, I did pick it because I felt this was a very technical movie, and
extremely.
As far as you're right. I didn't love it. It was a good movie. The one award that I think this movie should have won, hands down, and I'm ready for you both to disagree with me, is cinematography. This movie looks gorgeous in the way it's framed.
It's a beautiful movie. It's a beautifully shot movie. I wouldn't. I think in another year, I think this could have very easily won in that category.
I think every movie that wins best cinematography is a beautifully shot film, and out of the nominees and the winner, I just don't think that this one. I just don't think that it holds up. Shape of Water is a beautifully shot film, and I didn't think it deserved cinematography for that.
I think
Darkest Hour is beautiful. I don't think it deserved it for that. And it was Blade Runner 2049, which Roger Deakins deserves an award. Like, that man is a genius. And 2049, even if it wasn't the best film of 2017, it was the best looking film of 2017.
I don't think so.
I know, but you didn't. This is where I'm gonna I don't like the original Blade Runner. Like, this
Nobody
is
does.
well documented. I think it's a big old bore.
Right.
I love.
I'm telling you though, that director's cut though is really good, Tim. That extended
it's
director's
really not.
cut.
I've watched it. No, I've watched it. No, and the extended director's cut and the director's cut are two different cuts, Frank.
And the final cut and the
final cut. That's the one. The final cut.
Yeah, that's the one I watched. No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's really boring. That's not what we're here for.
It's still boring. I just think it's better. I think it's generally recognized. The final cut is recognized as being better because it doesn't have the narration and all that kind of stuff. But whatever.
Nope, don't care.
Okay.
But but I've never seen the original cut. I've only seen the extended director's cut, whatever. So maybe I would like it with the narration more. But it is the best looking film, and
For sure.
Dunkirk is good because all of Christopher Nolan's films look good. Is this a Wally Vista movie? Do we know Dunkirk?
I don't know.
No, Hoyt van Hoytema.
I don't think so.
Hoyt van Hoytema. It was a good looking movie. Of course it was. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. They're all good looking, but it wasn't Blade Runner 2049.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, essentially at this point, Christopher Nolan is just Martin Scorsese now.
He's just going to keep making excellent films.
He's just going to keep getting
an award
nominated,
for
and
his
then
not best
eventually,
one.
eventually they're just going to be like, "Here you go, you made The Departed 2."
Yeah, good job. It's true.
Has Nolan never won?
No.
Not that I can remember.
Okay, so he really will be Scorsese then.
He's essentially been nominated every movie he's made since The Dark Knight.
Okay.
They're like, "Oh yeah, we screwed up there.
Yeah,
You get nominated."
Yeah, but I to me though, even Interstellar is a better looking movie than Darkest Hour is. I mean, Darkest Hour, but Dunkirk.
Inception.
Inception. Right. I forgot about that too. Yeah, I think Interstellar is his best film. Maybe
But it's
Dark
also
Knight,
it's tough because you want to compare. The natural inclination is to compare against that person's body of work. But you also have to compare it not just against is this his best work ever, but is this the best work out of all the films nominated? And when you look at it that way, I think Blade Runner is superior.
Yeah,
there's I mean, I don't know. There's just something about Blade Runner, and I think a lot of it is all the scenes that I keep seeing that talk about how good the cinematography is, just all are filled with all CGI. And I'm not saying that's the entire movie, but I'm saying every time someone tries to point to a scene, Like one of the scenes is like where he's standing in front of that giant,
Holograph.
holographic woman. That's CGI. Like to me, that's not.
Yeah, but
That's not
take that
having
out.
the eye.
Take that out and look at Ryan.
Look at Ryan Gosling. You have to look at, like, he's not CGI. The bridge he's standing on isn't CGI. The hologram is. But you know what? That'd be like saying, like, oh, see this shot of the ocean? It's just a shot of the ocean, but in Dunkirk they added in all these ships. You know, like, so it's that doesn't hold any weight because it's the mise en scène. It's what the camera captures.
Yeah.
So whether it's put it in the computer later or not, it is what the camera has captured.
Okay.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think there's probably lots of films where we don't know what's CG and what's not. Like, because things like the ships like look like they could be practical, they could be models or whatever, but they're probably, we know they're probably CG.
Yeah.
There's
I
a
think
lot of
most
films
of them in Dunkirk are actually practical. That
Are
was
they
one
really?
of the
That's
selling
interesting.
points of Dunkirk.
Like those water scenes looked so good. I don't know.
Well, most of the time because it was water.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't love this movie. I love the look of this movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's interesting.
That's fair.
I think that this movie, despite all of its different components, lacked a heart. You know, that's always like Christopher Nolan's, like, that people always say that. And I don't think it's true. I think Interstellar has tons of heart. And I think The Prestige has an incredible amount of human emotion and
I'm so glad you said that, because I was gonna bring that up as an example. Absolutely.
Right. And so, but I just don't think that Dunkirk does. I think it's a incredible achievement of filmmaking, you know, considering that most of it's real and we don't really get that anymore.
Right. Which is why I was happy, like, any technical awards it won.
Sure. But it doesn't sound, even then, I still don't think. But it's fine. That's
fine. So before we...
Oh, I'm not done yet. What about all the other? What about all the other things?
There's
the
other categories?
I saw most of these things. I didn't see the documentaries because they're really hard.
I know
to
you
find.
didn't.
They're really hard
you
to
didn't
find.
choose any.
Did you see them?
No, I just went with the best sounding ones.
Okay,
and both times I was right.
That doesn't count.
Both times I was right.
That's horrible.
That doesn't count. That's why I didn't choose them.
No, it doesn't matter.
No, you
both times I was right.
Take those out of that
You can't get
tally.
credit for those, though. You can't count those against your total.
You
can't.
cannot get credit for those.
You cannot.
No,
You cannot. You threw it. You
can't
darts
sit-
against the board.
You can't sit there and hear a movie title of Heaven is a Traffic Jam on the 405 and not think that is the Oscar winner.
I don't care. I could have guessed Gary Oldman was going to win for The Darkest Hour, but I didn't predict it because I don't deserve credit for that. I didn't see it.
Deduct from that score. Don't care.
No, take those out.
I
Subtract
still
those.
win by double.
Let me keep going. This is a long
Fine.
episode.
You may still win, so fine. So take him out. You still win.
Original song, "Remember Me" from Coco. I don't think that performance was very good. I know how Palmer feels about this.
We're going to let Frank talk.
Didn't see Coco
First.
Didn't see. I don't think I saw any of the animated. No, I didn't. Didn't see Coco. Didn't see Boss Baby. Didn't see Breadwinner. Didn't see Ferdinand. Didn't see Living Vincent. So.
Breadwinner was excellent. I highly recommend. And I've been
Ferdinand was awesome.
I can't wait to see Loving Vincent because every frame of that film is a hand painted post impressionist painting. Every single frame.
Oh, see, so you picked
that's the
Loving
Van Gogh one,
Vincent
isn't it?
for best animated movie, and you haven't seen that?
Yeah, didn't win either.
No.
So what does it matter?
I think Boss Baby was robbed on best animated.
That's dumb. Shut up.
The question was best song.
Yes.
So it should have been This Is Me. I will go to my grave saying it should have been This Is Me.
Having not seen Coco, so I can't give you the context of the song. I'm just doing it like as these songs stand on their own because that's really should be the original song. It was fine. But I do agree that This Is Me, I think, has This Is Me was in the Olympics. It was in the last day of the Olympics.
And easily the best moment of the Oscars was Kayla. Is that how you pronounce her first name?
Sure. I have no idea.
Kayla Settle?
Sure.
The singer?
I have no idea.
All right. Good job.
Okay, you're the one that's in love with the movie.
Keala.
Keala. Kayla. Yeah.
Kayla. So Kayla Settle, her performance of This Is Me is the best moment of the Oscars last night, and probably one of the best moments in the past few Oscars. Her almost breaking down, crying towards the end. It was very emotional. But all that aside, it should have, when I think of an Academy Award song, I think of this, and I think of My Heart Will Go On.
I think of songs that have made it into the cultural zeitgeist,
and I think
the
90s
song
Disney
has, and none of those other ones have.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going.
Keep rolling.
Animated film, we kind of already talked about. Just as a side note, before we started this episode, my sister texted me asking if I had seen Coco yet. And as I was typing out the message, "How much did you cry?" without even saying whether I had seen it or not, she responds with, "I haven't bawled that much in a movie ever." So, classic Disney. So, of course, I'm going to have to see it now because I love a good cry, especially during a children's movie, because those are the ones that I cry at the most, I think.
This is true.
I cried during Paddington 2. Just putting it out there.
Yeah,
it was a great movie. Blade Runner 2049 won cinematography, which I already talked about. It also won best visual effects. I don't agree with
What
this.
else was nominated for visual effects?
Better visual effects, I
would
think.
imagine so.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Kong Skull Island, War for the Planet of the Apes, Star Wars.
War for Planet of the Apes.
War for the Planet of the Apes should have won.
One day, the Academy is going to recognize
Motion capture.
And that'll be the day they give Andy Serkis five Lifetime Achievement Awards.
War for the Planet of the Apes was, from start to finish, one of the best films of 2017. And
it was.
And that's not and I'm saying, looking at this list of 2018 films, War for the Planet of the Apes was just as stirring and moving and thought-provoking as any of those films. If I have to settle for special effects because that's the way the Academy works, fine. Did it get that? Didn't even get that.
No.
It's fine. This was
Sean
my
Young,
sticking
though.
point.
Sean Young in Blade Runner 2049.
She didn't look that good.
I thought she looked. That was the most convincing one of those that I've seen. That was more convincing than Tarkin or Leia in Rogue One. I thought that was the most convincing one.
Nah, I'm not with you. And where's these other films? Like Star Wars was good. Kong Skull Island was good. Guardians was all good. But War for the it was transcendent, and I don't think that. See, but the thing is that I don't know in Blade Runner 2049 what was real and what wasn't.
That's how you know it was good.
Yeah,
That's how you know it was good, Tim.
Stop making Frank's argument, Tim.
Okay, but to that point, in its own way, was it just the scene? I'm watching characters on screen.
Yeah.
I'm watching my main characters are motion capture. So that it feels different than Ryan Gosling.
Right. So you know what it is? So you know what it is? I'm going to help you out here, Tim. I'm going to do something I very rarely do.
Help me out.
While I can't tell you what's real and what's not in Blade Runner 2049, I could tell you that even though I know those apes are not real, they feel and seem real in that movie. And that's why it should have won best effect.
I would agree. I agree with that. But unfortunately, nobody else sees it that way.
Well, I'm sure somebody voted for it in the Academy.
I'm sure somebody did, and I'm sure it was close. But in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. We have here Best Animated Short, the Kobe Bryant film won. I've seen all the Oscar shorts. That's not the movie that should have won. It's just not.
No,
what was your pick?
It was fine. I liked Garden Party the most, though I don't, which is just a bunch of amphibians and whatever else hanging out at a house, and it was really fun.
Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
It's just it's not even that. I think Revolting Rhymes was a really well made film. It's an adaptation of oh my god, who wrote James and the Giant Peach?
Roald Dahl.
Which is Roald Dahl. It's an adaptation of a Roald Dahl. It was really well made. It's good fun, and I think it was a better film than Dear Basketball. Just wasn't anything. I don't think it was anything it. It was inspirational, I guess, but that's kind of it. But so was Lou.
Yeah, to me, Dear Basketball winning felt like it doesn't happen as much at the Oscars as it does in other award shows. As much as it was, we want to give you this award because we don't have the opportunity to. We want you, Kobe Bryant, to be able to give you this award.
Yeah, and I didn't like it. I wasn't there for it. Negative Space was really good. I recommend. Best live action short was The Silent Child, a film that I also really liked. Did you see the shorts, or am I talking to myself here?
You're talking to yourself.
The Silent Child was excellent. I don't think it deserved best. The Actually, they were all good. DeKalb Elementary was excellent. My nephew Emmett was really good, but Watu Wote, All of Us, was really good. It's the true story of the Muslims and Christians on a bus in Africa that are attacked by terrorists. It was incredibly stirring, thought-provoking, made you think about everything that you should be thinking about. And in some ways, so was Silent Child, but it was good, but it wasn't the best.
Okay.
But that's my own take. And then Heaven, documentary short, Heaven is Traffic Jam on the 405, which I did not see, thus actually wrapping up the Oscars.
Good job.
2018.
So you obviously think Shape of Water.
I think Shape of Water deserved Best Picture. Yep.
Was
Frank?
it still your favorite film, Tim? I remember on an earlier Academy Rewind episode, you'd said it was your favorite film of 2017. Is that still true?
Oh, it might be. Yeah, it still might be my favorite.
I mean, have you seen anything else from 2017 yet? I mean,
From
2017.
Yeah, I saw a lot of things from 2017.
After we recorded that episode, because we recorded that episode last month.
Oh, maybe, though I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right, Frank. Out of the 9 nominees, what do you think should have won Best Picture?
I would have given it to Three Billboards, actually. I really, really liked Three Billboards. It spoke to me more than Shape of Water did. I thought Shape of Water was a beautiful film. I think Guillermo del Toro is like very much a visionary director and a great storyteller. But Three Billboards was, I thought, more poignant and a bit more timely. The Shape of Water, while a beautiful story of sort of, people who are outcast, getting what they deserve and overcoming those differences that society puts them aside. I thought Three Billboards for me was a little more poignant.
Okay. I can definitely see that when we saw Three Billboards, I walked out really loving this movie. I've since cooled on it a bit. The second time around, I don't think it was as well done as I thought it was, but I thought the acting in it was top notch. And I think that's what really carries that movie. For me, though, the best picture is Get Out.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Just for so many reasons. One, a filmmaker at his first real attempt at a dramatic subject doing that much. The fact that you can go back and rewatch it and still pick up more stuff. And the fact that this is the same guy that gave us Keanu.
Oh, so true. Actually,
and the fact that he stepped up his game so much after that catastrophe.
Catastrophe? Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
One interesting fact, though. So, Call Me By Your Name stars Timothy Chalamet, who's also in Lady Bird with Lucas Hedge, who is also in Three Billboards with the brother from Get Out, which has Bradley Whitford, who's also in The Post.
Huh.
Yeah, he is. Wow. What a
6 degrees of the 2018 Oscars.
What an incestuous Oscar pool.
I don't know if you can actually link them all, but those are the ones I've gotten so far.
That's pretty good, Palmer. That's pretty solid.
That's really
This
solid.
is what happens when you rewatch 9 movies in a week.
No kidding.
So did you watch? So have you seen them all twice?
Yes. I'm sorry. I've seen most of them all twice, except Call Me By Your Name and Phantom Thread, because I was asleep throughout the entire movie the first time.
Still, that's impressive.
He wasn't asleep the whole time. He put earbuds in and refused to watch the movie while we were in theaters.
Right.
Because
you went to a theater and paid for a ticket and then sat there with earbuds?
To be fair, I only
for the
paid
ticket.
for half of Tim's dinner.
Yeah.
Why did you even go?
It's movie Thursday.
All right. We'll talk about this offline.
All right.
Okay, so that wraps it up for us. You can find us on academyrewind.com and on Twitter and Gmail. You can also check out all of our Thought Bubble Audio shows at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. You can check Frank and I out on Beer with Geeks and Supergirl TV Talk. You can check me out on Tolkien TV Talk. You can check Frank out at Starkville's House of El Krypton. You can also look at Hate Watch with us. Did I leave any out? Or that was everything? That was everything. I did it.
I think that's
There's
everything
so
for now.
many now. I can't list them
We
anymore.
got 6 shows on the network.
It's crazy. We're like professional and
We're
stuff.
like the CW.
Yeah, 6
Just
shows.
like that. And they're all about superheroes.
Almost all of them. All right. Well, that's it for us then. And so it looks like they're playing us off.
No, I have so many more people to thank.
But until next time,
Cheers.